So I made a couple of changes in the day today. One, Beetle's new web page is underway. We have a beta web page that expands out Beetle's work itself, starting from where it was when the beetle.techiev2.in, the homepage currently, to what it is today. And there is much more that it exposes today in terms of what it gives as an augmented information about a web page. And the proof of the pudding is in the eating, as they say, and it is always a good thing to dog food your own products, right? How do I test it? The good idea was that to provide a web page. Yes, that is a good way to test it, but the only concern I've had there has been the fact that when it moved from the point of an API that gives focus, rather provides focus towards the clean text part of things, a web page made a lot of sense. But the direction it has taken towards compliance and auditing of web assets, this is something that a is not something that immediately I would be able to have some kind of a web page that shows the overall positioning. I mean, I could do it, but it's more of an involved effort at this moment. So the choice that I had was to add some kind of a Slack bot. And so if you look at the things here, I'm doing something like assess. So there is a Slack command that I've added to my workspace, which is /assess. And let us say I have, let's say I'll take um, an e-commerce website that I figured out from the web, right? Snoop Slimes .co. It's an interesting note on how I figured these URLs out. So when I was working with Cash Free, one of the first things that we do is ask the merchant to provide a website. The reason is that when you are using a payment gateway, the expectation is that you own a digital asset on which you host the payment gateway, right? Which mandates the presence of a digital asset like a website. uh, Razorpay, for example, has a different way approach to this entire thing, wherein they provide a hosted web page on Razorpay for the policy pages and everything. Which Cash Free, as far as I was with them, we were going a different direction of mandating the web page. And if you do not have a web page, payment gateway is not available to you, but other products like say a payment link is still available to you and a payment form is available to you. Be that as it may, the next thing here is that a lot of the websites that we observe are coming from smaller and to an extent medium enterprises, and in a lot of cases it is what you generally call a mom pop shop on the internet, wherein somebody creates an Instagram page where they try to sell their products, services, etc., and they create a Shopify page corresponding to that, right? Why Shopify, what exactly goes on behind is a different, entirely different line of discussion, probably not bit fitting for this particular video. But going back to the point of Shopify, how Shopify works is when you onboard on Shopify, you try to create a web store for yourself on Shopify. It allows you to have some kind of a staging URL, which is something like say 1234 ABC XYZ, some kind of a random hash string dot myshopify.com. Right, that is your staging URL that generally gets created before you go live with Shopify. The second stage is you also have a way to have your subdomain on Cashify, wherein let's say my uh, if you look at my online presence, I am techie V2 everywhere, be it Instagram, be it Twitter, be it LinkedIn, say Facebook, or any of these mediums. I built that brand name, so to speak, over the years, right? So you could say that Sriram's catalog dot myshopify.com. So you can choose a subdomain there. So that is one way to do it. That's the second level of it. The third thing is Shopify also allows you to have your website redirect to your own domain. Like say you have um, something like say mysupplements.in, for example, right? You create the storefront on Shopify. You point your settings to redirect to the Shopify website. The domain is yours. That is the third way. So when I was looking to see how I can test all of these, the work that I've done with Beetle so far, it did remind me the fact that there is such a thing called myshopify.com. And if you go to Google and say like domain myshopify.com, you can quite literally harvest a lot of websites that are either live or partially live, which are basically e-commerce sites that are hosted by Shopify. So one of those is snooplimes.co, right? Now going back to the meat of what has been done with Beetle now, right? I am issuing a command to my Slack integration here, which is slash assess and the URL. It does support the backend of Beetle supports multiple URLs at the same time, but the Slack bot has been written in such a way that it takes only one URL at the moment. And there are other reasons also. I will get to that at a later point in time. Right now that I've figured out that there is a website called Snow Climbs I would want to assess. So let me put the persona of me being an operations agent at some company like say Cash Free, right? Generally, what I am doing on my daily routine is I have a merchant who is onboarded, who has given me snowclimbs.co as their website. I go, I look at their website, I read through their content, and then understand whether their policy pages are present or not, whether their policy pages are in good standing or not. And what we did sometime earlier when I was with Cashfree, when I built this thing for Cashfree, is that we worked on an internal engine that does this heavy lifting for the ops agent, right? How does it do it? It's a bit of a secret sauce there, the way that we have orchestrated this entire thing. That is probably not the right, is not the audience for that either. But what helps the operations agent is that when the operations agent lands on a merchant's details to audit things, they generally have a good picture of how this merchant website uh, you know presents their policy pages, whether they're present or not, their standing and everything, right? They also get some kind of a visual representation of how it was when it was originally captured. Now what Beetle does right now is it says, yes, that's a great thing, but are you sure that this is something that you would want to be an operational overhead in the first place, right? The delta here is that when we integrated this entire workflow and built it for cash free, the merchant onboarding times came from anywhere between 24 to 48 hours to 5 minutes, right? Now I present you Beetle. I am issuing my command to Snoop Slimes, rather for Snoop Slimes, and it is processing the request, it says, and there you have it. Within a few seconds it tells me these are the policy pages that are present, these are the product pages that are present on the website, and what are the legal standings for each of these policy pages. Is the policy page for shipping valid? Are there any green flags or red flags? Like for example, if you take the shipping page here, right, the shipping page URL is shown. Is it having any red flags? None. Okay, does it have any green flags? Yes. Strong delivery details. So this is an internal heuristics that Beetle does internally to figure things out and identify markers and signals, right? Now it tells me that strong delivery details are present, which means the merchant has a very clear indication of how they are going to handle the post uh, payment deliveries scenarios or refund scenarios. The same would apply for, like for example, your legal clauses or the privacy or your refunds and everything also, right? Individual pages of that kind would be captured independently of each other. Now the greatest thing here is that when you build a large enough system where, let's say, you have 1 million merchant entities in your system, right? For example, RBI has a mandatory annual audit of assets. When you say assets, it also includes everything to the point of the merchant data, your own audit data of the merchant's data, and a periodic snapshot of things, right? How much of a value addition would Beetle be here for that is the straight up value prop that I'll be making for Beetle. If you look at this workflow here, it did not take more than a few seconds for Beetle to tell where this merchant stands. And it is not a cached data in the first place. If you had a question about whether it is a cache data that I already did this and it is coming back, no, it is real time. It goes to the merchant's website at this particular point in time, identifies every single possible signal that we think is important enough as a parameter to identify a web asset, and then comes back. This entire thing, including nested web pages and everything, is within a span of a few seconds. So this is the crux of what Beetle is all about. uh, Taking a bit of a detour here, why exactly did I choose to call it Beetle? There was one misnomer here and one great connect here, right? Going to the connect, being positive upfront. The idea of beetle came from the point of a dung beetle, where the distinguishing characteristic of a dung beetle is it carries almost 1,100 times its body weight on itself, right? If you have seen a dung beetle, it would probably be so small, and the dung balls that it carries around, right, it is massive. The time, as you see, it took for analyzing and coming back with our website's standing and all of these, and the value that it brings is a direct correlation I see with the dung beetle, right? And why is it a misnomer then? Like, that's a fair point. It does not carry dung. That is the only difference. Maybe an ant would have been a better choice, come to think of it in retrospect, but beetle is what beetle is. So, uh, coming back from the detour that we made, now this is the V1 of Beetle that has focused on the compliance aspect of things and an operational aspect of things, right? But this is not where we envision Beetle to be in the next iterations of Beetle. When you look at this entire data set and the signals that it comes up with, there are n number of such similar verticals where it applies. For example, you are a VC who is trying to understand your portfolios, right? How they perform, how they are operating. uh, this is a very nascent way of operating, in the sense that, do you take a look at the competition and understand how their conversions work? Do you want your team to come back with it, saying that I have three portfolio companies that I work with, and I'm observing a fourth company which is new in the market as my competition? I would like to understand how they are doing it. Do I need to talk to all three of my portfolio companies and then try to have some analyst in my team to figure out how things are going? No, Beetle cover has you covered. Give you the four web assets to Beetle. Beetle gives you a clean, quick assessment of what the four are doing, and not just that. The signals it provides are signals that are directly actionable to you, right? Moving on. Assume you are somebody who is a CMO who is trying to understand why your marketing budgets are not converting, right? One thing that I've observed is marketing generally is post facto in a lot of cases. If you are a pre-mortem person, then that's a very great space to be in. I would really like to talk to you and understand how you bring all you know uh, leverage of pre-mortems and the systems into picture. But for the large majority of them, one of the concerns is that the website as an asset is owned by most probably an engineering team. The content is probably owned by the marketing plus product, right? There could also be cases where you use something like a site generator, right, which is not directly owned by marketing but owned between marketing and engineering. To give you a perspective or a relatable situation, One of these websites, which belongs to a very large fintech in India, when I started Beetle out a few months back, I had observed their website. I had did an analysis on their website to understand how their links work, how they are positioned, how they link back out, link in, and everything. Right. One of the concerns that I saw there was that the outbound links were broken. It is not a problem of outbound links broken per se, but two things here. One, once your links are broken, the crawlers that are sitting on your website trying to index it and trying to build the map around it are going to rank you lower, which means the organic inputs that you give into your marketing budgets are not going to convert well, right? Direct impact. Second thing, when you look at the problem of silos, so this particular domain, the website was owned by the marketing team in the sense the content was managed by them, but the generation, the deployment was owned by an engineering team. Now, where was the problem here? The engineering team had built a really nice workflow, except for the fact that their base URLs that came from an environment variable was null, and so undefined rather. So what happened? Every single relative URL in their website was slash undefined slash abc, and so on and so forth. Could it have been solved by a simple redeployment? Yes. But how do you know that? Marketing doesn't know that this is the problem. Marketing knows that there is a problem. Engineering doesn't really know because it is not their P0 asset in terms of how they work with. This is another place where, as a marketing leader, as an engineering leader, or somebody who sits at the middle of two as a product leader, you can leverage Beetle to understand how your web assets perform at every point in time, frequently, and specifically at the points where you deploy your changes as an engineering leader or a product leader, right? Third thing, you say that you would want to work with certain cases like, say, market analysis, right? This is a nascent idea that Beetle has today. It has not evolved into a fully functional metric or an engine to work towards that, but that is one of the ideas that we have, that we would want to build a really robust platform around, right? How do you analyze the markets around you that you are trying to either a break into, or b, like the case of I keep forgetting the name. If you had watched Silicon Valley, the investor there, he puts together one and one and then figures out that you would probably want to invest in this futures and so on and so forth. How do you identify that? Patterns. That's one way. But how do you identify patterns? Once you have data. How do you identify data? You identify not a mass of data, but you identify signals from the haystack. So that is what we would like to eventually get Beetle to a point where it would be providing you that kind of a data as well. So taking a step back, looking back at what we have built so far, the last couple of months have focused on one or two parts of what Beetle has been building from the very core of it towards what it is today. It is iterating, it will keep iterating towards larger goals, as I mentioned. The idea here is not for Beetle to be one small API here that gives you some small part of the website or some information from the website. It is an operating system, if I may, for entities that deal in digital assets. If you are a venture capitalist who would want to understand your overall landscape, Beetle is your key. If you are an engineering product or a marketing head or a leader in the space who would like to have a platform for all your teams to work and not work, like, say, the case of an operations team where you should not be making your operations folks work on things that are easy to come by at the drop of a feather, right? These are places where Beetle comes and sits in the middle as a wonderful, wonderful ecosystem of an operating system. So this is what Beetle is today. This is what Beetle has evolved into today. And I would hope that in the near future we will have one more of a short video where I introduce the next set of features and the next plans for Beetle, as it were. And that is pretty much all in this version of TechieV2's log for devlogs. If you have not subscribed to my devlog, which essentially started out as what I called a crisp devlog, wherein I have another product called Crisp, which is a news app that I built originally and resurrected into an absolute lean beast, which is more of a technical log. It this entire thing about Beetle would also be part of that same devlog for now. We would essentially at some point in time diverge and have two different devlogs, or one product log for Beetle and one devlog for Crisp and any other thing that is purely related to Techie V2. Be that as it may, if you have not subscribe to the channel, please do subscribe. Please do drop in your comments on what you think, um, that interests you in what Beetle brings in today. And if you are one of those folks that I mentioned about, um, a senior, a leader in the marketing product or the venture space, where you think this could evolve into something else that you have an idea about, I'm more than glad to discuss that out with you. My socials are out there, Techie V2 on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere. Do drop me a note. Let us sync up on that as well. And until the next time, see you around.